Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel once again, and in this tutorial I'll be showing us how to model a simple character face. So now let's proceed. First of all, you left click on this cube here and click delete on your keyboard to delete that, and I'm going to change my perspective view into my orthographic view. So I'll say Ctrl Alt Q and it takes me to my 4 orthographic views. And I'm going to come to my front view also and say Shift A to add the image reference. I will select image and select reference, and I will go to where I save my image reference in my desktop, and I'm going to load that reference. So this is the reference. I'm going to say load reference image. So I have my reference image here. I'm going to come I'm going to select this and say Shift D to duplicate and right click to release that, and I will say arrow on my keyboard. I will say Z and 90 to rotate at the angle of 90 degree on my Z axis. So now I have 2 image reference here, my front orthographic view and my right orthographic view. So I can come to my move tool here. I'm going to select this first also, and I'm going to push this backwards. My front orthographic view, I'm going to push it backwards, and my right orthographic view, I'm going to push this backward, looking like this. And if you watch now, my image reference in my right orthographic view is facing this way, so but I want this part to face this other way. So I'm going to select this again and say arrow and Z, and I will say 180 on my keyboard. So now it's facing right instead of left, which is okay. So I'm going to select my front view again and come to my object data property here, click on object data property, activate opacity. So what I want to do next is that I want to align this. I want the center of this grid to be at the center of this face. So I will say G and X to move on the X axis. I'm going to zoom in again and say G and X. So I want this line to be at the center of my character face. G and X, ensure it's at the center. I think this is okay now. So I can check this, or I can just leave it that way first. So I'm going to go to where we have filters, select filters, select selectables, and this allows you to freeze our image reference. So if I uncheck this and uncheck this, I will not be able to select my image reference again. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to say Ctrl Alt Q, back to my perspective mode. I'm going to say 1 on my keyboard for my front orthographic view. And I'm going to come to this point of my windows and ensure that my mouse has this plus sign here. I'm going to left click and drag. So I have 2 windows here, and I'm going to hover my mouse to this other side of the windows. I'm going to click on 3 on my notepad keyboard for my right view. So I will have my front orthographic view and right orthographic view here. So I can start the modeling process. So in this tutorial, we're going to be using plane for our modeling. And I'm going to say Shift A to add an object. I'm going to go to mesh and bring in a plane. So my plane is lying downwards. I'm going to say arrow to rotate X on the X axis and 90 on my keyboard to rotate at the angle of 90. I'm going to say S to scale this plane, and I'm going to move this plane downwards to this point. So if you see here now, my plane is also in this side, so I'm going to move my plane on my right photographic view to this front here, but we can't see our plane except in the object mode. So as we proceed, we'll continue. I'm going to come to my what we call overlays here, click on overlays, and let's activate wireframe in our geometry. We'll do the same here too. Come to our overlays in geometry, activate wireframe. Now we can see our edges properly. I move this guy here first. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to say tab for my edit mode, and I'm going to add a loop cut, Ctrl arrow to add loop cuts, and left click twice to activate that. Click on 3 on your keyboard for face selection, select this face and click delete on your keyboard, and the delete menu comes up, and I'm going to choose face. So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to add what we call mirror modifier. I'm going to come to my modifiers properties here, click on it, go to add modifier, and add what we call a mirror modifier. And you see we have another face in here. I'm going to come to my where we have clipping. I'm going to check this out, and I'm going to click on cage. So now if I say 1 on my keyboard for vectors mode, if I select these vertices, I can, if I move these vertices, this same thing is also happening to my other side of my reference image, which is cool. I'll say Alt Z for wireframe mode, and I'm going to just window drag and select all this and move this guy upwards. I'm just going to move this guy upwards. So this is okay now. So what I'm going to do next is very simple. I'm going to select these vertices and move to this point here. Select this middle one and push forward a little bit. You can say Alt Z here also. You can select all. So ensure that, another trick you should know, that whatever thing you do on the left hand side or on the right hand side, you have to make that adjustment in the other side of your reference. Now let's proceed in our modeling. 2 for edge selection. I'm going to say E to extrude on my keyboard to this point here, and I'm going to come to my right photographic view and push this edge to this point. So whatever thing you do on one side of your reference, you have to do the second side in the other side of your reference. So next, I'll select all this. I'll select this, and I'm going to rotate this arrow to rotate. I can hold Alt and select all and say arrow to rotate. Push upward a little bit. To select this edge and arrow to rotate. Rotate it again a little bit and say E to extrude. Arrow to rotate. I'll just make some light adjustment here, and I'll say E to extrude again, and arrow to rotate. I'm just going to push this inwards a little bit, and I'll say E to extrude again. So I want to make this kind of a low poly model so we can understand properly as we are beginners. So I'm going to push this to this point and just align this there, and I'll say E again to extrude, arrow to rotate, push this forward and bring this downwards. So I'm going to select this and come in my right orthographic view and make that adjustment here also. I can say arrow to rotate. Just ensure you follow your references. So my reference image is not laid out well, but I'll just try to adjust them so it matches properly. So I'll be considering this front view as my main reference, and I'll say E to extrude again, arrow to rotate. I'm going to push this way. I can rotate this also a little bit, and I'll say E to extrude again in my front photographic view, arrow to rotate. I'm going to push this guy forward. I'm also going to select this edge and push this guy forward also. I'm going to select this edge and say E to extrude and arrow to rotate. So I'll come to my right orthographic view also and make that adjustment, and I'll say E again to extrude and arrow to rotate. Come to your right orthographic view and make that adjustment also, arrow to rotate again, and I'll select this edge, hold shift, select this edge and say F on your keyboard to fill that up, and you can say 1 for vector selection, and we can just align these vertices following our references. Alt Z, and you can say Alt Z to see what we've done so far. So we have something like a loop here, so we can make some adjustments here. and make some adjustments here. So we can continue the process. You can say 2 for edge selection, select this edge, or I can select this edge and say E to extrude, right click to release so I can move uniformly, and I'm going to say 1 for vector selection. You can select this vectors, hold shift, select this vectors and say M on your keyboard and say center. So we can merge that together, and I can say Alt Z. So I can now push this forward following my reference, and push this forward following my reference. You can say Alt Z here. So we can also play around two main things here. You can hold Alt and select this loop and say G twice to move this loop here. And we can say Ctrl arrow to add just one loop cut here, and we can move this. You can select this, hold Alt, and let's push this forward a little bit. So we have something looking like this, Alt Z. So we can also say 2 for edge selection, select this edge, you can say E to extrude, come to our right view, make the adjustments, arrow to rotate, and I can say E to extrude again and just push to just seal that up, and say arrow to rotate this, and I can push this way, and I can say 1 for my vector selection, Ctrl arrow, add just one loop cut there. Don't think we need that loop cut, so Ctrl Z. So I'll select this, and say M on my keyboard, select center, select this and select this, hold shift to select multiple vectors, say M, and let's wear that center, and I have the chance to bring this downwards and move them in my right view. So just always ensure to just follow your references at every point in time. I think this is okay now. So what I'm going to do next is very simple. I'm just going to select this. So now I want to create our nose trees, which is very simple. Say 2 for edge selection, hold Alt, select all this edge here, or hold shift and select these edges and say E to extrude, right click to release. You can move it to this point here and say E to extrude again, right click to release and move uniformly. We have something looking like this now. I'm going to create a loop from this nose here down to this cheek here to the jaw. I'm going to select this edge and say E to extrude like this and arrow to rotate. So we're going to come to our right view and make that little adjustment, and I'm going to say E again to extrude and arrow to rotate. You can move this way, and you can just arrow to rotate this. You can select this and push forward, select this, move forward. So you can either select this and rotate also, and creating that smile look here. And I'm going to say E to extrude again, arrow to rotate. I'm going to push this way, arrow to rotate. So I'm going to do that change it here also. I'm going to just push this a little bit forward, select this, say arrow to rotate and E to extrude again, and let's seal that up. And select this and move forward a little bit, and move this forward a little bit. You can say 1 for vector selection, select these 3 vectors here and push backward this way. So this is what we have now. This is how our model looks like. You can also make some few adjustments also on the eyes. What I'm going to do next is that we're going to select this and move this guy forward, following our reference Alt Z. Okay, we can say Alt Z now, and you can just move this to this point, following our reference image also. So ensure you pay attention to the two sides of your views. So what I'm going to select this and say M and center to where that. I'll move this to this point here. So I have this loop around my nose, which is okay. I have this loop for my eyes, which is okay, and I'm showing that our topology is very neat. So I can select this and say M to where at center, or I can decide to add one loop cut here. Hold Alt and say G to grab and move that loop. Select this and say at first. So now we can now start creating the mouth, which is very good. Or Z, we can say G twice to move this loop upwards. This is okay now. Say Alt Z, you can hold Alt, you can say 2 for edge selection. Hold Alt, select all this loop and say E to extrude, right click to release, S to scale that for the mouth, and scale it to this point here and say Alt Z. You can move this down here, and we can come out our left view and push this forward. Say Alt Z, 1 for vector selection. Now we have the chance to align this. We can select this, move this forward, bring this down. So we can just arrange this points here, which is okay now for us, and select this too, and so we can say Alt Z now, and we can say Control arrow to add loop cuts. Just one loop cut here, and we can now adjust this point following our reference. Say Alt Z. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more loop cut here. Control arrow to just add one loop cut here, which is good for us, and just ensure we follow the reference properly. So Control arrow again. So I'm going to add one more loop cut here. So let's not consider that now. And select this and push this inwards. Select this and let's bring this to this point. Let me say Control arrow, add just one loop cut again, Now we can select this and move this backwards. So we can make those few adjustments in the mouth areas. Alt Z, we can select this also and push backwards. Following our reference, select this and say G twice to move backwards. So always ensure you follow your references at every point in time, and this is okay now. So I'll just make that adjustment, and we can select this also, and bring this to this point, or Z. I'm going to say Ctrl R to add just one loop cut there. So we can select this 2 and we can push this forward. Select this 2 and push forward. So we can see how our character mouth looks like. So let's make this adjustment also. Push these 2 inwards to this point. Select these 2 vertices and make some adjustments also. You can see Alt Z to see what we've been doing here. See, one for vector selection. So you can also make some few adjustments also if there's need for any adjustments. You can select all this, and let's bring this a little bit backwards. And select all of this, and let's move this downwards a little bit. Just okay now. We can select this also and move this downwards. You can say G twice on your keyboard. Say G twice on your keyboard to shape that. click G twice on your keyboard to move those vertices. We've done some work on the mouth, but we'll still come back to the mouth later on. Now let's create the nose. 3 for face selection. Hold shift and select all these faces here. So we can say E to extrude, right click to release, and now let's move uniformly on the Y axis. 1 for vector selection. Select these vertices here and push downwards, following our references. Push Alt Z. So we can select this and move this inwards also. I'm going to say Ctrl R to add a loop cut here. Say Alt Z again. And move this inwards also. This is okay now, and so we can also make some adjustments here also. Alt Z, say Alt Z, and we know that this point here is popped out. You can select this, move to this point, select these two, and let's move them backwards a little bit. So ensure you follow your reference at all times. So this is how the nose of our character looks like, which is okay for us, and we keep the process going. Say Alt Z again for wireframe mode. You can select this and move, push downwards. I think we can still push this like this. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to create the loop around the cheek here, from the jaw here down to the forehead. So by doing that, we say 2 for edge selection. You can also select this and say E to extrude to this point. Make the adjustment here and say Alt Z, so you can see how it looks like. I'm going to select this edge here and say E to extrude this to this point, and I'm going to move this on the right view. 1 for vector selection. You can select this also. 2 for edge selection. Select this edge. I'm going to extrude in my right view. I'll say E to extrude, arrow to rotate, move to this point, and I'm going to move this also here, and arrow to rotate a little bit. You can say E to extrude again, and arrow to rotate to move it down to this point, and in my front view I'm going to push this way. So I'll say 1 for my vector selection. I'm going to select these two vertices and say M to wedge and say center and say Alt Z so I can see properly. Select these two vertices, hold shift to select, and you can say M and to wedge at center. Do the same here. But before I wedge this, I'll say 2 for edge selection. Select this and say E to extrude, arrow to rotate, come to my front view and push E to extrude again. I'm going to move this on my front view also. I'm going to rotate this. I can say E to extrude again like this. Say arrow to rotate. I'm going to say E to extrude again. Alt Z for wireframe so I can see beneath. Push that inwards and say arrow to rotate. I'm going to say E again to extrude to lock that. I can push this, say Alt Z. I can bring this to this point or I can leave it that way. So I have something looking like this now. So I can select this and push this downwards. So I'm ensuring I'm pulling my reference also. So this is for my jaw. So I'm going to join these vertices together, all these edges together also. So I can decide to weld them. I can say 1 for vector selection, select this and say M and say center. But first I will say Alt Z so I can see them properly. Say Alt Z, I think this is okay. I'll select this and select this. So I'll select this first and select this and say M and we'll say weld at last. I'll also hold Alt, select this and say G twice to move this towards the vertex. Select this and select this, M to weld and say at last. I can also say Ctrl arrow to add just one loop cut here. Select this and say M at last also. So this is what I have now. As you can say Alt Z. I have this, I can select this now and say G twice to grab and move those vertices. I can say Alt Z and select this and push this forward. To be downwards. I can select this and push. Follow my front view reference. Push this upwards a little bit. So what I'm going to do next is just to weld all this together. So I can select this and say M. I say weld at center. So I can select this also, say M, weld at center. So I'm just ensuring that I keep this very simple and low poly. 2 for edge selection, select this and say F to fill. So I can also select this also and say F to fill and F again to fill. Let me do Ctrl Z so you can see it. So I want to fill this, so I can select this edge and say F to fill. So it fills this and I can say F again to fill. I can say Ctrl arrow to add a loop cut here to complete this phase 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So you can say Alt Z to see our progress. And we can also move this towards this place just to align towards that kind of cheekbone. Just make some few adjustments. Push this forward a little bit and push this forward a little bit. You can decide to add just one loop cut here. You just can pop out, so you can pop out the cheek properly. Select this and move forward a little bit. And select all this and move forward a little bit. So just make some few adjustments also. We can move this on Z arc on the right orthographic view just to align that. Okay, you can also make some few adjustments here also to Alt Z. Ensure we follow our reference. So what I'm going to do next is very simple. We're just going to say 2 for edge selection. First, let's 2 for edge selection. Select this. Select these edges. Hold Shift. Select all these edges. Select this. And say E to extrude upwards. And say right click to release, and let's move uniformly. And come here and push this following our reference image. I say Alt Z. Say 1 for vector selection. We are going to assume this head, so we can see, but we can just follow this shape and assume the head. We can say E to extrude again. Say arrow to rotate, 2 for edge selection, hold Alt, select this, and let's push this downwards. Say Alt Z. Use our head here. We can say 7 on our keyboard for top view, and we can see how the head looks like. Say 3 Alt Z, select this, move this point, and let's just adjust this a little bit. So we're doing something very simple. We're going to say 2 for edge selection, hold Shift, select all these edges here, and say E to extrude, right click to release, So I'm going to come to our scale and scale on the y-axis to make that straight. I'm going to say E again to extrude to this point. And say E again to extrude to this point. Say Alt Z. I'm going to move this on my front view to the end and lock that up. I have something looking like this now. I'm going to hold Alt and select this. I'm going to move this to this point, giving us that head kind of shape. I say 7 for my top view. I say Ctrl arrow to add one loop cut here, and just that shape this looking like a head. Your Alt Z, 1 for vector selection. Then select this and move this way. So I can also select this and say M, say at center to join that. Also say G twice, say M, I can say at last. I can say G twice and move this point. I'm just creating the marks on my ear. I'm just going to select these vectors and align them. Say Alt Z. Hold Alt, select this and push backwards onto arrow to add one loop cut there, and push this. I can say I can go to my back view. I'm going to hide all these references so I can work on my back view properly. I can hold Alt, select this and come to my scale tool and scale on the x-axis to straighten that up, and say G twice to move. Also move it this way. I have something looking like this. Just to make few adjustments, I can say Ctrl 7 on your keyboard to go to bottom, and you can shape the neck of this character properly. Now we can bring back our reference and see Alt Z. So I'm going to do something very simple now. I'm just going to select all this and I'm going to push backwards for it to look like the shape of a head. Because I can't see my head properly in the reference image, so I'm just going to improvise and make this very simple. I don't want the head to be too big also. I want to ensure to keep this simple also. I'll say Alt Z, say 2 for edge selection, and select all these edges and say E to extrude, and arrow to rotate, say E to extrude again, so I can scale this on the Y axis. I can select this also and select this and say F to fill that. Say 1 for vector selection. So now I want to merge this. I'll select this and say F to fill. You can select this and say F to fill and F to fill. So that settles that. Alt Z. So I can now shape this head properly. You just have to be very creative in this place. Say G twice to move that vertices. G twice. I need to select this also. Select this and say G twice to move those vertices. Take this upwards a little bit. I'm going to add one more loop cut here. Control arrow to add just one loop cut there. And if you've done that, you just have to make some adjustments so we don't have sharp lines on our character face. So always ensure to move vertices at every point in time. Just few adjustments. G twice, grab and move. I'm just going to move this to this point. Just following my reference image here. And select these two and say G twice to move. Click G twice to move that. Okay, now we have our character looking like this. And so we've come to level 1. We've come to the end of level 1 of our character modeling, and in our part 2 we'll be doing some. We're going to fix in the eye socket, and we're going to extrude the neck, and we're going to model the hair and the ears. So thanks for watching. Please kindly subscribe, follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, and comment and share this video to your friends if it has helped you so much. So thanks for watching again. Goodbye.